Usually when we build internet-connected applications, we approach the relationship between the client and server as a one-way street. The client always initiates the communication with the server with a request, and the server always sends back a response. It is never the case that the server initiates communication with a request to the client. However, there are many times when building an application where getting updates from the server is a necessary feature. An example might be how an instant messaging app needs to be notified of new messages as they arrive at the server. Or perhaps a video game where changes to the current game state need to be communicated to the server and then rebroadcasted to every other client as quickly as possible. These problems could be solved using the traditional one-way client-to-server communication method using a technique called polling. Essentially, the client repeatedly asks the server if there are any new changes that need to be communicated. You can imagine that this is quite wasteful, as in most cases there won't be anything new to communicate from the server each time it asks.
0.
What we need is a way for the server to initiate communication with the client when new information arrives that needs to be communicated. Enter Websockets, a method of creating a two-way communication channel between your clients and your server. The first step of establishing such a channel is for a client to send an HTTP request to the server asking to upgrade the connection. If the server agrees, it will send back a 101 switch protocols response, after which the handshake between the client and the server is complete, and the connection between the client and server is then left open. Because there is now a persistent open connection, passing bidirectional messages between the client and server with very low latency is now possible. The connection is then left open until one of the parties disconnects and drops off. To demonstrate the power of WebSockets, we'll quickly build a simple instant messaging application that establishes a two-way connection between a web browser and a Node.js server. We'll start by building our server, and the first thing we'll need to do that is to install the package ws from npm. The next thing we'll need to do is import ws. And then after we've imported ws, we need to create a WebSocket server. And we'll use port 8080, although you could use any port you'd like. WebSockets work on events, and the first event we'll want to listen to is the connection event, when a client connects. Listening to the connection event will give us a reference to the client, and we'll use this client to listen to another event when a client sends us a message. Listening to the message event gives us a reference to both the data that's been sent and also whether or not that data is represented as binary. Now that we have our data from the message event, we'll want to send this data to every other client connected to the server. And with that, we've finished our WebSocket server. So the next thing we'll need to do is build our client. Now I've already set up an index.html here, which has an empty list where we'll put our messages, and two inputs, one for the name and the other for the message, and then a button to send that message. The first thing we need to do is to connect to our WebSocket server, and we'll do that by using the WebSocket object. In order to connect to our WebSocket server, we need to give it a URL to connect to. In this case, we're connecting to localhost on port 8080, just like how we set up in our server. Moving on, the very first thing we need to do is to set up a way to send messages to the server. And we'll do that by binding a click event to our button, and then getting the values from both of our inputs, and then sending those via our new WebSocket object. Next, we'll want to listen to one more event, the onMessage event on our WS object. We'll use the message event to get the data that we've sent from our server. Then, we'll want to get our message list DOM element. Finally, we'll want to make a message list item and add it to the DOM. And with all of that done, we can start our server and test it out. So we can give each of these clients a name and also type out a message. And when we send our message, you can see that the message has been sent to all connected clients. And that's been a quick demo of how to make a WebSocket server. Thanks for watching.